Hey, it's Big T. Today I thought I'd put together something more natural for us. It's the winter time here, and the water tends to really clear up in our rivers, and the trout can become a little more selective because their metabolism can slow with the water temperature change. So I'm starting with a black thread. That's a Danville 70 denier. And a size 18, one of my wide gap jig hooks, along with a 2.5 millimeter slotted tungsten bead in the color brown. And at this point in time, I'm going to grab some brown ostrich plume. And I'm going to take a couple of these strands and trim off a little bit of the bottom end. And I'm going to tie these in at the back of the hook, but I'm going to leave a little stem moving forward that I can wrap up just to keep the body thickness consistent as it comes up. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap these up. If you notice, you can just see how buggy these things make this fly look. You can do, if you don't have a rotary vise, just your traditional hand wrap. Come behind those a couple of times and then in front a couple of times as well. And we'll trim that off. So the next material we'll add is going to be a CDC feather and a rusty spinner. You could do a brown, anything in that genre. So I'm going to preen these fibers back so I can tie it in. One of the things that I will do is, this isn't a small feather, but especially on smaller feathers, I'll use my hackle pliers to grab the stem at the very tip of that. And then I can just pull everything back from there, and it gives me something good to use as a tie-in point. If you've got too much of that sticking out, I'll trim it off. I don't have a whole bunch, so I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Grab my hackle pliers again and start wrapping this. Whoop, came out. That will happen. I've learned not to get frustrated and lose my mind. It's happened enough now. Yep. Now, if it happens 3 or 4 times, generally I'll just pick up my vise and throw it against the wall a couple. I'm just kidding. Alright, so that should do it. And when I come around and get to this point, I'm going to start stroking those fibers backwards. Depending on the thickness of your CDC feather. This one was a little bit sparse, so I made several turns. If it was a really thick feather with a lot of heavy pieces coming off, I'd cut that down because we don't want that soft hackle to be too thick. So I've got some scragglers around, so I'll pull that back, preen them back, and then wrap. Okay, this is a fly you could finish off at this point, but I'm going to add just a small, tiny pinch of Ice Dove, and this is a hot orange UV. And I mean, I'm going, you probably can hardly even see it on my fingers. I'm really going sparse. You could probably just use a hot orange thread if you wanted to create a similar effect. I think that's one of the biggest things you learn as you tie is less sometimes is more. When I started tying, I know I overdubbed. Did a lot of things in excess that I've kind of learned to minimize. Little zap-a-gap on our thread will help secure that, and then I'm going to go to the whip finish. And I'm not going to quite be done yet once I've done that. Most of the time your CDC feathers will be longer than you'd like for your fly. And most feathers I don't like to cut. It just gives it a weird look. But with CDC, what you can do is you can grab these things, pinch it right there at the back of the hook, and start pulling off at that level. And that'll give you just a real buggy looking fly. It's got a lot of movement in the water, good for this time of year. Hope you enjoyed this. You can subscribe to my channel if you would, and visit my store, bigdflyfishing.com. You'll find these materials and more.